Hi everyone, my name is Allison. I am here to talk about my 3 worship service observations for economics of religion. For these observations, first I went to Christ Community, which is an Evangelical Protestant church in Greeley. For my second one, I went to First Congregational Church. Well, I didn't go there. At this point, we were under stay-at-home orders, so this was the first recorded one. And for my third observation, I watched St. Peter's Catholic Church online. And I guess I will start with Christ Community, and I'm going to go through and describe each Mass service and then come back together and compare and contrast them all. So, Christ Community is the largest church in Greeley, and I would say that its target audience is mostly college students and young adults and young couples with kids. And if I had to describe it in one word, I think the first one that comes to mind is probably that it's really fun, because my first impression was that it's kind of a party, honestly, because you go in, have this big auditorium room, big stage, all these chairs set up in a row, and it feels like a conference more than church at first. And they have this really cool worship band, like have this girl with septum piercing and bleached hair. She's super cool. And they just have colored lights everywhere, super welcoming environment. They do provide free coffee and free cereal for college students, which I would assume is a very big draw for most of us. And for younger couples with kids, they do provide free childcare during all their masses. And this is provided on a volunteer basis. Other churchgoers volunteer to watch the kids during the services. Um, their worship music isn't like it's not like traditional Catholic music. Like they don't do really hymns. There's no pipe organ. It's like Christian pop, I would say. It's like you have a rock band up on the stage, and that just contributes to the appeal for younger people, I think. It's definitely not as structured as a lot of other church services. Like the other two I went to definitely focused more on the structure and the doctrine. Um, the sermon for this one, it started with a verse from the Bible, and at this point they were doing a series on relationships. So they used this verse from the Bible to like connect back to how you live it out in everyday life and in your interpersonal relationships. And this is different and also interesting to me because it seems, at least at this particular service, to sometimes focus more on like real life relationships than a relationship with God, which I feel like is something people don't really expect from a church, and it's kind of unusual. But overall, I really enjoyed this one, and it was really fun. I would go again. 5 stars on Yelp. The second observation I watched online this time was First Congregational Church. This one is normally in Greeley. I didn't have to leave my room, I was here, but this one it was like, I would say, a middle ground between Evangelical Protestant and the Catholic Mass. Like, if you squished them together, you would get Mainline Protestant, which is what First Congregational was. And it this one also had a really personal touch to it. It was really nice. I think if I had to describe it in a phrase, I would say family oriented. Um, yeah, this church, unlike Christ Community's auditorium conference room, was actually like a church. There were pews, there was an altar. Um, and the priests were at Christ Community, the pastors rotate every week and they're dressed like casual clothes, no robes or anything. This church had the priests dressed in more traditional robes, and it was the Lent season at the time, so they were purple. And this wasn't quite as formal as Catholic. Like you could see still like regular plaid shirt underneath the robes and everything. And the pastor's introduction, it seemed really clear that he was like very familiar with his congregation, and they seemed to have like a really strong interpersonal connection here. Let's see. This one had a lot of involvement, even with COVID-19, from the congregation. Like, they very obviously reached out and encouraged um, parishioners to send in video clips so that they could incorporate them throughout the recorded service, which I thought was really cool. It's kind of nice to have that view of other people and that connection when you can't actually like go out and gather together. But the music was all provided by there was a man named Tim. He had a guitar, and he and his wife and kids just played music and they sang songs, and it was really cute. This one was definitely more traditional music. It wasn't like the Christian pop that Christ Community did, also not the Latin Gregorian chanting that the Catholic Church did, but it was this sermon was focused around the theme of like the song This Little Light of Mine and letting your light shine out into the world, which was a really cute message for this time period when you can really use some light. This one was really easy to understand for someone who's like never gone to this type of church before. They had a lot of points throughout the Mass where they would cut to a different video of someone explaining what was going on. I think this was really to help incorporate kids into the Mass. Like at one point, they cut to a woman in a green t-shirt just going through how the altar was set up and explaining each element of it. Like they had flowers and there was a reason for it, candles, reason for that, everything. And it was really nice for someone who's never gone to this type of Mass before to have that rundown and walkthrough of it. And also throughout the Mass, they had a lot of participation from kids. Not directly, obviously, but they had parents send in videos of their kids repeating the message of the day and what they got from it. And it was really nice. And it's just a very family oriented church. Definitely had more of the Catholic structure in which they had some like ritual stuff where they do the normal Catholic run through and then the priest has a homily and then they close with more ritual stuff. And then, yeah, my third one was St. Peter's Catholic Church, also in Greeley. This one was also recorded. I watched it on Sunday, April 19th, which is Divine Mercy Sunday, and that's the Sunday after Easter. So for this one was definitely the least personal of the three. There was only one person in the entire video, and that was the priest. And it started with just a shot of the empty church and music in Latin playing, which it was something I didn't like as much because the shot of the empty church just kind of reinforced that, like, nobody can go see each other right now. But yeah, and this church was definitely like your traditional Catholic church, and the priest ran through the Mass like nothing was different. And this was way different from the last one in that particular respect. Like if you've ever seen a Catholic Mass before, it was normal, and he did not change a single thing to accommodate for COVID, which is probably kind of comforting in a way because you still have that routine in your life. But if you've ever seen a Catholic Mass, it starts out with like half of just the same thing every single week, goes through, I guess I want to call it a ritual, I don't know, but he goes through all the traditional stuff and then a reading from the Bible. And this week it was from John, and it was the story about doubting Thomas. And this is the same time period as like the Sunday after Easter, Divine Mercy Sunday, fits in with the Bible story. And so when the priest finally got to his homily, which was the most personal part of this entire service, he focused on how his personal experience and the experience of everyone right now and like our frustration and confusion with what's going on is similar to Thomas's frustration and confusion with the resurrection and Jesus leaving. And that was the most personal part of the Mass, even though it wasn't that personal, but it was still good. That I liked that he used the Bible to explain sort of what everyone is feeling given the pandemic. Um, and the rest of the Mass was just the normal Catholic rituals to the end of it. Um, he did, yeah. So it was completely normal the way it would have been if everyone was already there. Like candles were lit, communion was there. He ran through a way to do it at home. He just encouraged people to pray the same way they would as if they were receiving communion in the church. So I think even though it seemed a little impersonal, I do think he did try his best to make it feel as normal as possible, which in its own way is pretty much as good as encouraging people, just like giving them that same routine in their life, which was nice. This service was the only one that gave me like no insight at all into what the congregation looked like, so it was really hard to do a to figure out like the consumer side and like why people go there. But this church is the one that um it sponsors Bear Catholic, and I met a couple people in that. They're very cool. And so every Sunday, I think at 6 p.m., that mass is specifically for students, and then dinner is provided afterwards. So the church does, on production side and consumption side, make a significant effort to cater to the college audience of Catholic students. And it does seem like with providing dinner that there is a certain element of being family oriented about this church too, which is nice, honestly. Um, I'd say with the Catholic Church, it has something of like strictness theory in there because if you want a more relaxed experience, you're probably going to go to Christ Community or First Congregational. With the Catholic Church, I think people probably get the value from the structure and all the everything additional that comes with Catholic Church, like sacraments, confession, all of that. I think people probably get the value from the additional difficulties that come with being Catholic, and I feel like that's part of the main appeal of the Catholic Mass compared to the other two. Um, yeah, I would say that what the Catholic Church had most in common with Christ Community, it wasn't a lot, but they both are very involved with students, given like Bear Catholic and then Christ Community's large student population that attends. Um, Definitely First Congregational, like Mainline Protestant, seems to be a middle ground. Like at the Protestant Reformation, I'm assuming Mainline Protestant is the closest to what the original split from the Catholic Church looked like. The Catholic Church, St. Peter's and First Congregational both share a structure, which I'm sure is nice to people who are looking for the structure that came originally from church, but in the case of being Protestant, they want a little more freedom, a little more interpersonal relationships. The Catholic Church definitely seemed to prioritize doctrine and structure over interpersonal relationships, which is, again, I'm sure that's why people go there. For me personally, less fun. But overall, um, it was really interesting to compare these three. I went with like three really basic choices, and it was interesting to see like the evolution from like the Catholic Church and then the Protestant Reformation happened, and it's really cool how you can like see the changes that these churches went throughout the like 500 years between then and now. And it's really cool to see how it evolved, and I had a lot of fun with this actually. And I think that about covers what I have today. So, bye.